Hey, I'm Jessica Rain, and I'm a candidate for U.S. Senate in the state of Delaware, and I want to talk about climate change and specifically the Green New Deal. A lot of people ask, what is the Green New Deal? What does it mean? What does it entail? And the Green New Deal would mean creating a legislative package that addresses some of the fiercest crises that our country faces right now. We're talking about racist and classist environmental degradation. We're talking about a stagnant economy, unaffordable public transit and utilities, an imperialistic domestic and foreign policy, and importantly, getting to net zero carbon emissions by 2030. And what you'll hear from corporate Democrats like my opponent are plans that get us to net zero emissions by 2050 at best. And the problem with that is that it ignores the climate scientists who tell us that this will be too late. If we miss 2030, the window will close for keeping global warming to around 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is where we need to be. We can aggressively transform our economy to hit this goal, and that's where the Green New Deal comes in. To avoid irreversible climate catastrophe, we can mobilize our economy to address our lack of well-paying union jobs, our outdated infrastructure, corporate pollution that targets Black and brown communities specifically, and greed that is exacerbating wealth inequality. So next, people are like, okay, I get it. That sounds good. What does it actually do? So the Green New Deal is a resolution right now. It's an agreement to say we will do these things and achieve these goals. So we need to come up with the actual legislation. But the framework says we will reorganize our energy industry. We're going to hold fossil fuel executives accountable for the damage that they have done. We'll move to publicly owned and renewable energy sources. We'll include a just transition for workers to protect them, any workers that are employed in the fossil fuel industries, and massive federal capital investment in rebuilding our energy system, our water system, and our infrastructure across our country. That includes overhauling our U.S. transportation systems, which are a huge source of pollution and emissions. And finally, and most importantly, something that is missing from all of the other plans is justice in equity, and promoting it by repairing the historic damage that has been done and the oppression of frontline and vulnerable communities. So I know the Green New Deal has critics, and what they'll say is that it's too ambitious, or that fossil fuel executives would never support it, or that it costs far too much. First, we need to be ambitious when we are confronting an existential crisis. Why would we be anything less than ambitious in this moment? Next, the fossil fuel industry has poisoned our planet for the benefit of shareholder profits for decades, knowingly. They have shown no care for the public good, so we don't have to be concerned with appeasing them. What we have to do instead is take back the power to publicly own these energy systems and change them to entirely renewable energy sources. And no one is denying that the scale of the Green New Deal is massive. It will require a huge investment in our economy through congressionally approved spending. But that's the same way that our government always finds the money to spend on war or tax cuts for corporations to the wealthy. We can finance a public works project like the Green New Deal the same way. But on that same note, what's most important is that we can't afford to not do this. If we don't take action and the scale of action that the Green New Deal demands, we will lose biodiversity, we will destroy farmlands and crops, and huge portions of the planet will become uninhabitable. So that means we'll face refugee crises, food and water shortages, and the inability to rebuild after increasingly frequent superstorms. In Delaware specifically, we're going to see, and already are starting to, the loss of fresh water. More than 2 months of extreme heat days, and more than 10% of our state will be underwater in a generation. This is precisely why the majority of Delawareans support a Green New Deal. We must fight for climate justice, and a Green New Deal is an important tool in that fight to prevent the worst effects of climate change and build a more just, equitable, and prosperous society.